Okay, well, everyone, I'd like to introduce Katie Dane. She is the SBDC QuickBooks subject matter expert, as well as owner of Little Fish Consulting. So she did our first Engage with us in January of 2021 as a beginner's guide to QuickBooks. So now we are here, and she's going to take us into a deeper dive. What I request that you do is that you please continue to stay muted throughout the entirety until Katie opens it up to questions, and then you may unmute yourself, or if you have a question, you may always just put it in the chat and I could ask the question for you. So with that, I will pass the torch on to Katie and we will get started.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I have a PowerPoint for you guys, so we can see that. Okay. You should be able to see it now. My name is Katie Dane, as Kayla mentioned, and I am the owner of Little Fish Administrative Consultants. I've owned this business since 2016, and we do bookkeeping, administrative help, filing systems, all kinds of things to help businesses run their admin smoothly. Our motto is, you don't run a bookkeeping business, so doing books isn't your favorite thing, but it's our favorite thing, so. So this presentation, like Kayla mentioned again, is a deeper look into QuickBooks. And so it is designed for people who are already using QuickBooks, who are familiar with the software. And I'm just gonna go into some things that can make your system run smoother, that can help you to do the least amount of work in the system, but get the most bang for your buck, basically. So if you are not super familiar with QuickBooks, that's okay, but I'm not going to be going through some of the more basic things. So again, it just assumes that you have a little bit of experience in the software. So I've divided this presentation into different categories based on areas in QuickBooks Online that you can use. And so we're going to touch on various areas in the software and tips that I have to make them work for you better. Beginning with the reporting area. So if you caught the first presentation I did, I touched on reporting a little bit, but we were towards the end, kind of running a little low on time. And so I didn't feel like we got to cover it very well. And so I wanted to show you guys a little bit more about reporting and how you can use these reports to be more effective, I guess. So one thing I wanted to touch on today is using memorized reports. I know that it's pretty common to see people memorize a transaction in QuickBooks. If you have like a common bill or invoice that you're sending out, to like memorize that transaction so the software will automatically generate it for you. But a lot of people don't know that you can also do this with reports. When would be a good time to use a memorized report? It's when you have data that you need to collect fairly often, but it's kind of difficult to put the report together. So an example of this is a company wanting to track how much money they're giving for charitable donations. And so when you're going to gather that information, you're going to run a sales summary report, and then you're going to want to filter it by the charitable donations account, and you're going to maybe want to sort it so that you don't have all the different categories in there, so the report's a little more clear. So maybe you take some columns away and kind of get it looking just how you want it to look. And that process takes a decent amount of time. And so every time I have to create a really customized report, I go ahead and memorize that report. And so when you memorize a report, you can give it a custom name, and you can make sure that all this information is set up exactly how you want, and then have it generate every month automatically, or you can have it generate when you click on it. So there's an area in QuickBooks where you can click, oh, reports, and then memorized reports, and all your different specialized reports will be there. So I always recommend memorizing your reports if you're doing something kind of complicated that you're going to want to do frequently, because it just saves you a lot of time. And it makes it a lot easier and quicker to run more complicated reports. It's also helpful if you have somebody else helping you. like an administrative assistant or something, you can like create a report that you want to see, and then just have them run it off for you. So yeah. Another thing in reporting that I wanted to talk about is automatic report emails. So as I mentioned, you can create a custom memorized report, but you can also have QuickBooks send out reports via email automatically. So this is really useful if you have multiple people you have to send reports to. For example, if you are at a nonprofit and you need to send all your reports to the board members every month so they can review them, you can set up all the board members in QuickBooks and have the system send those reports out at the designated date, which is really helpful. It saves you from having to go through and email them each time. The one caveat with this feature is you will want to make sure that your date that you're sending out the reports is after your closing date for the previous month. So like if you're sending out reports for February, you want to make sure you send them out after you've reconciled all of February and those books are closed out, so that you have the most accurate information as possible, because obviously the computer is just going to send the report as of that day. It doesn't know if it's ready or not. So that's one thing you want to be careful of when using the automatic reporting emails. The other thing about this is, oh yeah, another example would just be like, if you are the bookkeeper and you want to send the owner of the business you're working for their reports every month, you can have it send out reports to people. So there's a lot of ways you can use the automatic report emails, and I've just found that it saves me a lot of time in having to hunt and peck, download reports, email them to people. It can just send it straight out of the books. So that's really helpful. Okay, so that's the few things I had on the reporting area. And if we have time at the end, I will demonstrate some of this, but I think I'm going to kind of go through and then we'll go into the demonstrations after, so we have time to cover everything. So the next area that I wanted to show you guys is the vendors area. And yeah, you can see my little titles already up there. Setting up vendors for 1099s. A lot of people have their accountants do their 1099s for them, and that's great. And I think that is a wise thing to do in a lot of situations. But you can check a little box on the vendors screen when you're creating a new vendor in QuickBooks that can track your vendors for 1099. And what this box, when you check it, is going to do is it's going to add all of the payments that you make to that vendor into a report for when you create a 1099. So that's helpful even if you're having an accountant do your 1099s for you, because you can just send them the report and it saves you from having to go back through and be like, okay, I paid him this month, this month, this month. Here are the receipts we have. It just really streamlines the process to have QuickBooks track this for you. So you can also back label vendors for tracking for 1099. So I guess taxes have been on my mind lately because tax season. And like if you have a vendor that you had been wanting to track for 1099 and you didn't check that on their file, you can go back in and check it and it will add the report to the report their payments for the year. So that's really helpful. Oh, and you can also attach a PDF file to the vendor's 1099 like account screen. I don't know, it's not of their 1099. I meant to put, you can attach a PDF of the vendor's W-9, right into their customer account. So when you're creating 1099s, you need their W-9 form to get their business tax ID number and various information to send out those forms. And what I like to do is attach the W-9 right onto their account in QuickBooks so that it's there and you can see it. So that's a bit of a typo there. Also, I recently learned that you can process all of your 1099s in QuickBooks, and it's very streamlined and actually simple to use. A lot of people are intimidated of doing their own 1099s because it's like, oh, that's tax stuff and it's kind of intimidating. And like I said, having an accountant do that for you can be really good, but QuickBooks does have a system where they'll allow you to process and file your 1099s through the software. And it's really very affordable and very simple. They walk you through all the steps. And if you process your 1099s with the QuickBooks e-file service, it's $15 for 3, and then only $4 for each additional form, which is really very affordable. And they will e-file those for you with the IRS, and they will also email and mail a copy to your vendors. So if next year you're feeling brave, you want to save some money and try and do this yourself, it's very doable, and it's a really good feature in QuickBooks. So that's that one. The other thing I wanted to touch on in vendors is online bill pay. And this is a feature that's not as talked about. And so I don't think very many people are using it, even though it's a free feature in QuickBooks Online and really helpful if you want to like take your stuff the extra mile. So it's online bill pay, and you can access this feature from the pay bills screen in QuickBooks. You just select the bills you would like to pay, and then you can click a button at the bottom of the screen to schedule online payments. And then this brings you to a wizard that helps you set up the online bill pay. It's a super helpful tool. I just like can't emphasize enough how much we have loved it since we've discovered it. You can really centralize your bill paying activities, and you can enter multiple sources to pay bills from. So you can put your Discover card in there, you can put your bank account in there, and you can even have QuickBooks send a physical check, which I think is really cool, from your bank account to a vendor. So this is helpful because it allows your team to be really mobile and flexible when issuing payments as needed. So like we learned last year, sometimes not everybody can be in the office, and we have to be able to adapt. We have to be able to move fluidly through the situations that are brought into our lives. And so I found that this is a really helpful way to make your bill paying more flexible and not tied to a printer and a filing cabinet in your office. So I have some slides for you demonstrating how to set this up and kind of what it looks like when you set it up. So you can see here, this is a pay bill screen. And just so you guys are aware, this is a sample company, not a real company. And so from the pay bill screen, you would just select the bills you want to pay. And then on the bottom right, you can see that green Schedule Payments Online button. So you'd click that button. And that would bring you to this screen if you've never set up this feature. And I just wanted to show you guys how the wizard looks, because you can't really do this process in a test software. You kind of have to really do it or not. So it will look like this when you get started. And so you just click the continue. And it's going to ask you, how do you want to send invoices? And so I always say email straight from QuickBooks, but you can see there's multiple options here. You can say like, oh, print and mail, or share a link, or attach a PDF to an email. I know some people prefer that if they want to send invoice from a specific email. So you just choose what you want there, and then choose how you want to pay the bills. And so you can see here, I have a sample bank account in there. Then I also have, you can add in like a credit card or a debit card. So if you didn't want to use your bank account, you could put a different source in here. And once you enter in all your source information, you're going to click continue. And then you can pick the ACH transfer or paper check. And because I didn't enter a credit card or a debit card, that's not showing up in the next screen. But yeah, so you can even have QuickBooks send a paper check to your vendors. And I love that. That's so helpful. And it doesn't cost any extra. So that's like saving you money right there. You don't have to buy paper checks. So I love it. It's great. And then you'll just put in the vendor you want to pay, their bank details. And then you can say like, okay, which way do you want the money to come to you from vendors? So I usually say ACH, but you can also pick all these different ways. It will even, I recently learned, allow you to let people pay with Bitcoin if you're feeling dangerous. You can also accept Bitcoin through QuickBooks now. So that's kind of the basics of the software. And so once you finish this wizard, this is the last screen, you click next, and it would say like, okay, enter the details of the payment. But usually it takes the details of the payment from whatever you clicked on this pay bill screen. Sorry, I'm like gesturing, but you can't see that. But yeah, so it'll take the 8644 you have checked and apply that to the bill. So that's how that works. It's a really cool tool and free to use. So I would definitely recommend setting that up if you haven't set it up yet. We really like it, and I think it's really cool. So then the next thing on invoicing, oh yeah, creating a custom invoice. So a lot of people do know about this, but some people don't. So I like to just touch on it. You can create a totally customized invoice in QuickBooks from the gear icon, which is up in the top right-hand corner. You can choose a lot of different options in this. You can choose like pre-built layouts, fonts, colors. You can import your logo and then adjust the colors of the invoice to match your business colors. And you can add a message to your clients here. And so that's really helpful because invoices are, as you know, a super client-facing accounting service. And so you really want to bring that whole experience of your brand, your company, in with the invoices. And this is a really good way to do that if you weren't already aware. Another thing that you can...
just to interrupt quick, we did have a question. Yeah. Can this all be done through online version and desktop version of QuickBooks?
Oh, yes. So the desktop version of QuickBooks does not feature the online bill pay service. And that is because Intuit is working on phasing out the QuickBooks desktop, which is unpopular. People like it, it's unpopular that they're trying to phase it out. But so they aren't adding some of the new features into the QuickBooks desktop software. And so that particular one, the bill pay, is only available in QuickBooks Online. But the other things I've mentioned, the reports and creating a custom invoice, for example, are available in QuickBooks Desktop. So I'll try to let you guys know as we continue on if anything is like specific only to QuickBooks Online.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Katie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, with creating a custom invoice, the other thing is you can upload an invoice template. So if you have an invoice you've been using that's in like, say, Microsoft Word, and you have like images in it that you really like, and you've already set up all the branding, and you want QuickBooks to just put the numbers into something you already have made, you can upload an invoice template and then tell QuickBooks where to put the information on that template. So that's helpful if you have like something already created that you really like, but you just want to automate the process. Oh yeah, so an example of this is sometimes I will help clients add like a membership renewal form at the bottom of an invoice, or like something to collect client information that they would tear off and mail back. And so if you want to add something special on your invoices like that, then you can do so by uploading an invoice template. So yeah, the other thing with invoicing that I wanted to tell you guys about today is adding PDF attachments to invoices. So usually when QuickBooks sends an invoice, there is always a PDF attachment of the invoice itself. But you can also add other PDF attachments to your invoices. And so you would do that when you're creating the invoice. If you look at the invoice creation screen and kind of scroll down a little bit, you'll see a button that says add file. It's usually directly above or very close to where you would put in the memo. And so if you click that, it will allow you to upload a file to be sent with the invoice. And so that's helpful when your client might need more information beyond what's on the invoice. For example, if you are sending an invoice for a newspaper advertisement, you could attach a PDF copy of the tear sheet so the client can see what their ad actually looked like in paper. So that's like one example of how you might use this. But there's lots of other things you might want to send. For example, you could send a coupon or a discount code or like various things like that with your invoice. Oh yes, and this is a QuickBooks Online only thing, the activity area. But in QuickBooks Online, they have an activity area associated with each invoice. You can view this information by clicking on an invoice on the invoice screen. So this tool is really cool. It allows you to view all of the activity with it, which means you can see if a client has opened the email, if the email was sent with the invoice, how many times the client viewed the invoice. If they paid it, it will have the payment data on there. And the client can also add in notes from the invoice that's emailed out of QuickBooks Online. So they'll add notes into it and those will show up there too. So it's a really good way to kind of like bring your client communication about invoices into the system, and then you can see it all in one place. So that's going to save you time from hunting through emails, trying to find all the conversations you've had with the client regarding the invoice. It will let you know if the client saw it and is not paying it, or if it was never opened. It's a lot easier to approach a client for collections if you can say, oh, like I saw that you didn't open this invoice email. Can I resend it to you? Where should I send it? Yeah, so that's a really cool one. But again, the activity area is only in QuickBooks Online. That is not in QuickBooks Desktop. But you can attach PDFs in QuickBooks Desktop.
Katie?
Yeah.
Just regarding the online versus desktop version, we just had another question for that.
Yeah.
It says, how long before they discontinue QuickBooks Desktop?
So they are planning to discontinue support for QuickBooks Desktop in 2022. So if you guys have QuickBooks Desktop, which sounds like someone does, they usually every couple years will say, oh, support for this version of QuickBooks Desktop is no longer happening, so you have to upgrade to the next one. So eventually they're planning in the next 2 years to say like, okay, instead of upgrading to the next QuickBooks Desktop, you have to upgrade to QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Enterprise, which is a QuickBooks Desktop product. So you'll only be able to continue using it if you're using the Enterprise version. That's their rollout plan.
Perfect. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see here. The other thing with invoices that I wanted to touch on for you guys is automating invoices. So you can automate invoices from the Create Invoice screen, which I think is really helpful if you have invoices that you're sending out every single month, like a retainer client or something like that. So I just have a couple of slides to show you how to automate an invoice. You can see here, this is your general Create Invoice screen on QuickBooks Online, but you can do this process in QuickBooks Desktop too. So you can see here at the bottom center, there's a little button that says Make Recurring. And so you would click that when you're setting up an invoice. So you can see this invoice from our sample software is a weekly gardening service. So you could just click Make Recurring and it would bring you to this screen. And this is just like before it's filled out at all. And so you can see the interval kind of in the middle left of the page is monthly on the first day of every month. And you have various options like automatically send emails or put it into my print queue. So you can kind of come in and customize that. So here you can see I've customized it to automatically send emails to the client and add it to my print queue. And it's going to go out weekly on the Monday every week because it's a weekly service. And then as you scroll down the page, you can edit the invoice as normal in this recurring screen. You can add lines, add a message. And you can notice down here on the left of the screen, there is an option to add an attachment, which is what I was talking about earlier. If you just were to click there, you could add an attachment onto this invoice. Yeah, so that's how you do that. It's really straightforward and it saves you a lot of time if you have clients that you have to invoice frequently. Again, like retainer clients or like a weekly gardening service, something where you are doing the same thing for them every month. Okay, are there any questions about the invoicing area before I move on to the payments area? If there is, drop them in the chat and Kayla will ask me. If not, I'm gonna keep going. But the payments area is the next one I want to touch on. What time is it here? You guys, I put this presentation together and I thought I'm not gonna have enough content, and now I'm like, we're never gonna get through all the content. So I'm sorry. So I just wanted to touch on payments again, because I did talk about it in my presentation a couple months ago, the basic one, but it's just a really good feature. And so I want to make sure that anyone who wasn't in that presentation knows about it. You have two plans available in QuickBooks Online. One has a monthly fee and a lower rate per transaction, but the other one is completely free as far as a monthly fee goes. And this allows you to send invoices to your clients with a pay now button, and the client in the email can click pay and send the money directly to your bank account, just right there. And people love that. You will get paid so much faster, at least in my experience, if the client can just click the invoice in their email and just shoot off a payment. That's just so much faster than waiting for a check. It really helps with cash flow, and it's free to set up. So if you want to learn how to set that up, check out the presentation from a couple months ago. I go through the whole process there, but I just wanted to touch on it here because it's super free and super helpful. So it's definitely worth doing if you aren't doing it already. Okay, now I've got some bonus tips and resources for you guys. And then we're gonna go into some demonstrations if we still have time. So you can create a cash receipt journal in QuickBooks. These help you quickly review the money that you've received for a set period of time. So like very helpful in retail or restaurants if you just wanna see like the money that's come in a set period of time. So like this week, this month, whatever. So you're gonna click on the sales transaction button, which is on the left-hand side of the page. So if you go into the sales area, and under the sales transactions, you can filter the drop-down list and select the type money received. And so it will only show you sales that received payments. Otherwise, it shows like all sales, all the invoices. So that's really helpful if you're looking to do that. If you want to be able to find just the payments you've received for the week or the month and not filter it by any particular client. The resources and bonus tips are just a smorgasbord of helpful information. Turning off spell check. I don't know about you guys, but I have definitely had a lot of issues in QuickBooks with the software saying, oh, that's not a real word because it's the name of company or something that we sell specifically that's not technically a real word, and that can be really frustrating. Just like it'll always like stop you from sending out the invoice because it wants you to correct the spelling on it, but the spelling's already correct. So if you want to turn off spell check, you can go into Edit, Preferences, Speller, and you can uncheck the box. And this is something you can do in QuickBooks Desktop, which is the same process, and QuickBooks Online. So I just think that's helpful to know. I didn't know it for many years, and it slows you down when every time you try to send an invoice with an abbreviation or some initials, it tries to stop you to check your spelling. So that's how you can turn it off. Finding the history of a transaction. Have you ever been trying to figure out what's going on with an invoice or a payment and it looks weird and you can't figure out if something got deleted or like edited along the line? this is for you. To gather more information, you would open the transaction in question, so like the invoice, and you go to reports, and there's a transaction history option. And so if you're looking, for example, at an invoice, it'll show you any credit memos or payments that have been put against that specific invoice. So that's under reports and transaction history report. And it's a really helpful tool for when you're trying to reconcile your books, especially, or if you have a client asking questions about an invoice and you just want to see like what went down in your books with that particular transaction. This is a good tool. Okay, so I've got some resources for you guys. And we can probably send these out in an email or something, or you can look them up off of here. But yeah, so I've got 3 things. The QuickBooks test drive, which I'm going to show you. We're going to kind of leave the slideshow and go into the screen sharing portion. But anybody can use QuickBooks test drive, which is a sample company in QuickBooks Online that you can practice in, that you can test out and see how you like the features of it, how you feel about running it. It's really helpful if you're looking at switching to QuickBooks Online. It's also really helpful if you want to try out a new process without messing up your actual books. So that is a really good resource I'll take you to. This top one, the QuickBooks Training and Help Center, I'll show you here. Not a lot of people know about this, I guess, in my experience. And I know that if you are like me, you have probably tried to call QuickBooks support because you had a question and gotten terrible response or had a really long wait time. And so this is a super good tool for finding those answers on your own. You can see here, oh, okay, you can search like a specific thing, but you can also see they have various trainings available for you just to help you learn any new process you want to learn in QuickBooks. And so I think that's really helpful if you're experimenting and trying to make your books better, trying to make things work better by using new processes or tools. You can come in here and get instructions and even like step-by-step videos on how to do all of these things. But for people who are more experienced in QuickBooks, I also really recommend the community tab of this because it's so much more helpful than their support line. It'll just say like, okay, here's my specific question and here's what other people using QuickBooks, usually QuickBooks experts, or people who are certified in QuickBooks would do to solve that problem. And you can literally just type in your question in here specifically, and I guarantee there will be somebody else who had the same issue. And so I just think that's super helpful. You don't even have to like filter it. You can just say like, oh, my invoice is broken. It's doing this weird thing. Has anybody else seen that? And somebody probably has, and they'll help you out. So that is a huge resource that I always like to show people. Then I'll just do the second one here and then we'll go into the test drive for a few minutes. This is a list of shortcuts that I like to use. So like, you know, if you're gonna cut and paste, you do Control-C, Control-V. So it's similar, but for QuickBooks. And so this can just help make your workflows a little faster if you want to try to like improve your speed of transactions and like your mobility around the software. You can start using these. So again, I think we should be able to send these out to you somehow, or you can always copy the link out of the presentation and go there yourself. But this is a really good list of shortcuts in QuickBooks that I use. So I've tested them out and they work, and yeah, they're very helpful.
Katie, I can put those right into where we put your recording. So
yeah,
it can just be right on our website. So
yeah, that would be great. Yeah, because again, they're super helpful. And again, I really just cannot recommend enough the Help Center. It's just so helpful. It's the best support that I have found for QuickBooks if you have a question on something. Way better than trying to call them. All right, so we have a few minutes left here. So I'm going to take you guys into the test drive. You have to tell them that you're not a robot to get in here. Okay.
Katie, just so you know, we can't see the test drive right now. We still see your presentation.
Oh,
So you
here.
just need to switch screens.
Thanks. Let's see. Can you see it now? Okay, and can you hear me? Yes? Okay, great. So this is what the test drive looks like. And it's just like a QuickBooks online software, but it's not real. It's just filled in with like data that you can use to practice. So I'll show you some of the things that I talked about in my presentation, and you can see what it's like to navigate in here. So with memorized reports, I'm in the reporting area, and you can see this custom reports tab. So there aren't any customized reports, but if you wanted to create one, you could say, okay, let's do a profit and loss. And I want to edit the titles, just for example. We could say this is like landscaping. So you can make small edits. And then if you wanted to save it, you can come up here and say save customization. So like, oh, I want it for just this week, and I want to display the days of the week, and I want to filter it by, I don't know, we can probably leave it as all, but you can filter it by any account you want. Okay, so now we've got a report for the week with how much money I made each day of the week. And I want to make sure that this goes out every week. So I'll just say save customization, and I could call it a weekly profit and loss. And then you can save that and it will come up on your customized reports. We don't have any groups right now, but you could group this together with other reports. For example, I mentioned like board reports, if you wanted to send something out to everybody, and you can do share with. And so here is where you can add people in to have that report emailed to them. And then once you save the report, it will be available to you under your custom reports tab. And so you can see your weekly profit and loss. And we didn't schedule it to be emailed to anyone, but if it was, it would say, okay, it's going out on this date to these people. And you can also just click it and it will pull the report for you. So that's the custom reports, and I think it's super helpful. And I have time to show you probably one more thing before we are done. So I will show you, let's see, let's look at the customized invoices thing. So if you go to your gear icon, you can click custom form styles. And from here, you can add a new invoice, estimate, or sales receipt that you want to send to your clients. And that will bring up this screen. So you can see right here, this first option is to dive in with a template that they have. So you can pick one of their pre-made templates. You can add your own logo, and you can update your colors. If you have specific branded colors, you can enter in the number here and it will pull up that specific color that you want. You can also, again, pick one of the fonts that they have, or if you want to upload your own specific font, you can do that here as well. If you wanted to upload an invoice on this screen, you would be able to do that, but it doesn't look like you can do it on the test one, which makes sense. But here you would be able to customize the content, and if you were using your own template, it would show this, and you'd be able to drag these boxes in to say where you wanted things to go. And then you can also customize your emails and what it looks like when someone receives an invoice from you via email. and what that email is going to say. So this is especially helpful if you're adding an attachment or a PDF attachment to your email. You can say like, note the PDF is below. So I think that's helpful to just customize this stuff kind of like on the front end so that you don't have to customize it every time you're sending out an invoice. So yeah, that's really helpful. Again, it's under the gear and custom form styles. And as I mentioned, you can also do estimates or sales receipts. So that's pretty helpful. Okay, and I think that's about all we have time to really go into in detail in the test drive. So I think we can open it up for questions now. Let me just stop sharing my screen. But I just wanted to say thank you guys for taking the time to listen to me today, and I hope that this was helpful for you. And if you want to go into more details about anything in particular, we could always schedule a meeting to talk one-on-one about stuff too.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions at all for Katie while we're here? Otherwise, I can, if it's all right with Katie, or I could put your email in the chat, or I could put mine and I could relay messages however you want to do that.
Yeah, you can put mine in the chat. That's
okay.
Totally fine.
Yeah, for now, we'll just open it up to questions. You can unmute or put it right in to the chat for us. Okay, so it looks like nobody has any questions at the moment, but I did put in Katie's email into the chat. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to her, or if you're looking for more of her contact information, feel free to reach out to us at IEDC, and we can get you in touch with Little Fish. Thank you guys so much, and I'll pass it over to Katie in case she has anything else to say.
Yeah, again, just thank you. And if there's anything that you wish we would have talked about today or you want to hear more about, feel free to reach out and I would be happy to get you more information on it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.